So is the latest iPhone worth queuing up for? Well, I'm joined by Graham Burton from Computing Magazine. That's one of the things a lot of people are saying, the iOS Maps, because they're not using Google Maps for this phone right now, and it's causing a lot of problems.
Well, they can just go online and go straight to the Google website, so I'd probably advise them to do that if they want to be able to find their way home again.
Why would Apple use the iOS Maps and not Google Maps? And if you would assume that they would have done their research and their testing to see that these maps actually work.
Well, I dare say Steve Jobs would have had his own opinion on these maps, and they would never have been released in the current form, in the current very poor form that they've been released. But at the moment, you've got a battle not just between Apple and Google. You've also got a battle for the consumer, for that channel to the consumer. And Maps is one of those key channels to the consumer because there's so much more that you can sell around it.
Right. The interesting thing about the Apple, and it's just one of those things. I got an iPhone, back in February. So I was a late, I guess, converter to this trend. But the thing is, what bugs me the most is the fact that, barely a year later, a new phone comes out, and it's going to be rendering my phone not obsolete, but outdated.
Well, it's not rendering your phone obsolete or outdated, it's rendering you unfashionable, frankly.
And I don't like being unfashionable.
Well, I can live with being unfashionable, as you can tell. But that's just simply the way it is when you've got a fast-moving industry like this. If you take a look at the PC industry, well, that's really slowed down. 10, 15 years ago, you had to upgrade if you wanted all the latest games or the latest software. You had to upgrade every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. Now that pace of development has moved onto mobile, if you want to be able to do everything that your more fashionable friends can do, then you've got to get a new phone.
But are you alienating a consumer base that would potentially be very loyal to you if you were saying, okay, well, just a year later or a few months later, here's the newest version, which you have to pay full price for?
Well, if a company such as Apple were to treat its customers kindly that way, well, they would get bored. They would move on to Samsung, they'd move on to HTC, they might even move on to Nokia, who knows? There's so much competition out there, and that competition is driven by the features that can be bundled in, loaded into these phones.
Is anyone out there that's really competing with Apple right now on Apple's scale?
In terms of Apple's profitability, no one can compete with Apple. It makes half the profits in the mobile phone device industry, which is a nice place to be, and that's where everyone wants to be. But there's some good phones, some interesting phones out from Nokia and from Samsung. The Nokia one in particular is interesting because it has built-in NFC, near-field communications, and that is something that people are saying will be used to make transactions in the future. So instead of putting your debit card into a machine, you'll just tap it and away you go. What Nokia's done with that is very interesting. It's allied that with wireless charging so that you can do things such as, if you want to charge it, you just put it down on the device and it charges. And that gets around the whole Apple interface argument debate that we had this summer.
Do you like the iPhone 5?
The iPhone 5 is a very, very nice device indeed, and if I had $500 to go out and buy one, maybe I would go out and buy one. But in the meantime, I'm going to be sticking with my old Nokia here, which still has a much better battery life than any Apple iPhone.